Morena koutou, and welcome to today's extraordinary meeting of the Prime Focus or around deliberations on the draft post-climate policy. I'll open us with a karakia. Ko ranganui ki ronga, ko papatua no ki kiraro, ko tātou ta ira tangata, ki whanganui ti hei mauri ora. Sky Father above, Mother Earth below, all of us in the middle, breath of life. Today we acknowledge Armistice Day, and a very significant day. Many of us will exit to take part in those very special commemorations throughout the Tararua District, and it's also a time where world peace has never been more at our forefront. So a couple of apologies this morning. I've got Councillor Sharon Wards, who is an apology, and also the Chief Executive, Brian Nicholson, for lateness. Can I have somebody move those BBC, please? Move Councillor Gilmore, second Councillor Long. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. And welcome to everybody online, and thank you for those watching online. I acknowledge the councillors from the northern end of the district. We have had to give due consideration to today's meeting and travel times to those various armistice services. Right. Sorry, I'll just go through it. Okay. Right, the reports. So, in the Chief Executive's absence, who's Rebecca or Raj, who's taken the report? Jess? Yes. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Do you want to come
Morning. Okay. And kia ora to you who are joining us online. This morning we are here for an opportunity for you guys to deliberate on the draft rates post-climate policy and to consider the submissions that were received in the consultation process. So I'm going to run through policy briefly, through the report briefly to summarise the submissions that were received. Jess is going to speak to some of the minor amendments that have been made to the policy. So, and apologies to you online, if I direct my words in this direction, sometimes it's easy to forget that there are people up there on the screen. So, Council received 22 submissions to the draft policy. We're really pleased to see people engaging and giving their feedback. And of those 22 submissions, 16 were in support, and there were 2 opposed, 3 gave brief comment but didn't indicate whether they were in support or otherwise, and 1 submission was a little bit difficult to interpret. Of those in support, people were pleased that the council was considering post-climate as an option to people who were impacted, and there was 1 submitter who felt that council should forgive all the areas on compassionate grounds. Of the comments that were made in support of the draft policy, there wasn't anything that was significant to the degree that management felt that there were any changes required to the policy. In terms of the submissions against, also 2 submitters, they felt that the areas should be written off by council. And there were some other concerns raised, particularly around fairness, around the potential administrative burden and the implementation of the policy. In terms of the fairness, I'd just direct you back to 5.2 of the policy, where of the report, sorry, when you considered the best way to deal with the issue, you gave consideration to minimising the hardship caused to impacted households as a result of the error. You were concerned to ensure equity and fairness to all ratepayers, including those not impacted by the error. and who have already paid increased rates over recent years. You were concerned to act with integrity and transparency, and also obviously to remain within the legal framework of the Local Government Rating Act, and that on balance of all those things, that a rates postponement was an equitable option. So just to recall that. In terms of the administrative burden and implementation, that submitter spoke to you at hearings about that at length, and from the staff point of view, the intention is not to create administrative burden or to increase the burden on the affected households. The intention is to keep it as simple and straightforward as possible, and I'll let Jess speak to that. Yeah, I'll hand over to you, Jess.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Yes, so I think everyone has a copy of the policy as marked up. Note that there were 2 copies, so the most recent one has additional amendments. As Rebecca was just saying, particularly pulled through from the submissions and the hearings that we had was the request that we make application or the administrative part of this process a little bit easier for the impacted households. So we have tried to reflect that in the policy. So our proposed changes are around removing the requirement to have to apply by those impacted households. So through our outreach with those ratepayers, we have already discussed with them all of the options, and we had some clear indications from a number of households. I think we're over 70 that have indicated they would like to avail themselves of the policy. So rather than treat them as having to then apply for the policy to postpone their rates, we think we can streamline that a bit. We can just provide them with a very simple template agreement, and they can sign that, and we can indicate how much their rates need to be. So we have removed the requirement under, I'll direct you to the changes. Under clause 6 of the policy, implementation and administration, rather than having to apply to council, we're just saying elect to postpone their rates, and that council will work with the impacted ratepayers to sign an agreement setting out the amount they want to postpone. And then I just throughout removed references to application. And we've also made a few changes here in the roles and responsibilities section, which is clause 7 of the policy, and that's just to remove again references to application. So those are the changes that relate directly to that submission. Did anyone have any questions about those?
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Just double checking if we've removed the application side, which I definitely support, that doesn't preclude anyone else changing their mind that we may have spoken to, or so that they can just contact us. We can talk through the options and go from there.
Yeah, so our intention is that we will, obviously for the people that have indicated they would like to postpone their rates, or the rates arrears, sorry, to be clear, we will write to them and let them know once if the policy is adopted that they can then use that option, and we will provide them all the information they need to do that process. For the people that are undecided at this stage, we will also provide them with an opportunity then to indicate they would like to use the policy. So we will be reaching out to those who haven't indicated a preference. In the report, we've also detailed that there are some households that have paid in full and have entered other arrangements. Those people will still always have the option to postpone their rates. And one of the things we're thinking of doing is putting a big section on our website where we can give them some direction around how to reach out to us and the right people to talk to, so that it is going to be simple for those families if they choose. If something isn't working for them in terms of their payment plan or whatever, they are able to then reach out to us and we can help them with the postponement.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Just quickly, this is more just working out where I can ask the questions of how we're going to be going through. Will you be talking more about scope and criteria and talking about the administration side of things?
Apologies.
So the other amendment was a slightly later addition, and I apologise for the lateness of that. We wanted to, for completeness, have a legal review of the policy to make sure it responded, once we'd made those changes, that everything was fine and it was going to have no legal implications, because that's good practice. So we have had the policy reviewed. There are a few minor changes proposed, and I think that's what you were referring to, Councillor Gilmore. So I'll just go through those if everyone's okay to talk about. Yeah. So what we've proposed is that scope and criteria, which is section 3 of the policy, is amended to establish entitlement to postponement for those who may not have been eligible for a rates rebate, but who have been impacted. Because they authorised council to apply direct debits against their bank account and did not have their direct debit amount changed. So we've been doing some research in the background, I guess, investigation in the background to understand those who might be impacted by that, and just to make sure that they would be also able to avail themselves of the policy. So I'll let Rebecca talk about that in a second, but I just wanted to take you to the scope and criteria, which is clause 3. Okay, yes. So we have amended that wording slightly. It's still, the policy is still intended to apply to a limited number of impacted ratepayers. And again, there's the requirement that they authorise council to apply direct debits against their account. And we've said there we're typically but not exclusively in receipt of or eligible to receive a rates rebate. And then the criteria has slightly changed, so that the first criteria is not that it's a rates rebate. Instead, the ratepayer authorised council to apply direct debits. So we've considered this thoroughly to make sure that this is not opening up floodgates or anything like that, and that it's just responding to the situation as we see it. So I wondered if I could pass over to Rebecca to talk about that.
So, as you know, we've been looking into whether there are any and how many other people might be impacted by this process error. And it has been and continues to be an extremely complex process. It's amazing how many hours have had to go into kind of ferreting around within the system and within the different ways to filter and understand groups of people within the system. But what we are pretty confident of at this point is that there are around 15 properties who are additionally impacted. So we had originally thought it might be slightly more, but as we've looked into it more, we're pretty confident that we're around 15 properties. There's still more work to be done in that, so we're definitely not. That's not a open and closed number, but that's what we're looking at this stage.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. 2 quick questions on that, and thanks. I appreciate the difficulties of getting the information within our systems. If we're pretty confident that it's 15, is there any way it could be substantially more than that? I suppose what I'm just wanting to test is fine if at 15, if it was a couple more or whatever. I just want to double check that there's no way that we could be surprised further down the track, especially with the change that we're looking at making with this policy and the exposure that might create, that there isn't any way at all it could be a significant number.
I'm not the person who has been wrangling the system, unfortunately, so I can't speak with the kind of clarity that that some of the more technical staff can. But as we have kind of talked about it and discussed within the team, I guess I would say that yes, we're fairly confident that this is not a widespread. That we're not talking, there's not going to be another large group of people. We've narrowed it down to this small group, and we are very confident that there's not going to be a hidden pocket somewhere that we didn't find.
Yeah, that was my concern, and then just my final question on that, Your Worship. So with the 15 properties, do we have an idea of what the value is?
That's around 37,000, so not a huge amount, but obviously a range within, some people owing less and some people owing more. That's so.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Councillor Johns.
Yes, just further to that situation, one presumes that they were delinquent at the time.
That's part of the challenge of identifying the group is determining where the responsibility lies, because there are quite a few people who have found themselves in a position of arrears where there has been payments that haven't come through. That might have been on an ongoing basis. It might be that the payment plan that was set up in the first place wasn't really adequate to cover the total amount. So just thinking through some of the ambiguities and the nuances for every single person, and what conversations might have been had with them along the way, and so yeah, it's even from my perspective, I'm not right in there in the system, and I think, gosh, how could it be that complicated? But it really is that complicated when you start talking to the staff who are involved.
I guess at the end of the day, it probably doesn't matter.
And ultimately, what we have this list of people, and every one of them has a different situation. At some point, a degree of discretion is going to have to come into it. As long as we're able to cover them off with the policy, that's the thing that we're primarily concerned about here.
Yeah, and we've just tried to allow the policy, be permissive in terms of the policy we can look at them against the policy, and then and we can apply it that way. So we're taking that approach rather than excluding these households.
Sensible.
Yeah.
Do we know how many people, so this is how many people who have a debit balance, but do we know, on the other hand, how many people had a payment plan, had been paying too much, and now have had that adjusted as well?
There were one or two people with a credit balance in that list. Yeah, but very small.
And it was within the 15 properties, so that's not on top of, that's inclusive of that amount. Those people have been impacted in some way. It's either credit or in arrears.
We don't understand the number of people that have paid too much, but obviously you've still got rates going through, so that there's obviously been some further adjustments to make sure that their amount's right, or you haven't found any of those. I would have So if somebody's payment plan hadn't been adjusted,
yeah,
and they've continued to pay a higher rate,
yeah,
so that to get ahead of their arrears, and then that has continued on at that higher rate, making their direct debit that they have been paid, more than they needed to,
yeah,
but actually they're not appearing in credit. They've just had to have that adjusted down. Have there been many of those?
No, and I know that of the two that were just referred to, one of those in the notes says that they had wanted to remain in credit. So similar to, there was someone right at the beginning that was identified in that situation as well. This is somebody else. So yeah, no, there hasn't been any additional people discovered in that site.
Okay, thank you. My other query is, you've got the policy will be reviewed internally on an annual basis. What does that look like?
So we wanted to have this on our radar every single year, so that we're looking at it, seeing how it's working in practice in terms of, has the admin been easier? Could it be improved? The requirement under the Act is that if you do propose any changes, that you do a consultation. So just by us reviewing it internally, we can make sure that there's nothing that we need to suggest as an amendment. And I just want to keep that as regular and keep it annually to begin with, just because it is such a new policy and obviously it has such an impact on people.
Thank you. Right. Are there any further questions, Councillor?
Just double checking it's the right place, more of a wider general question on the report, if I may. I think I've covered most of them. The first one on that is, what reporting can we expect as council to see coming through? And obviously, we have a number of people that have indicated that they want to avail themselves of the policy, but reporting of how many have actually availed themselves, people might choose to do that at different times as well. So, and then particularly with these extra around 15 people, I'd be quite keen just to see what sort of governance oversight you might have of people that will avail themselves of the policy.
We haven't talked as a team about reporting cycles or anything like that. I mean, ultimately, I guess you guys, if you have a preference, you can indicate that. What I'm imagining is for the final council meeting of the year in December, we would give a fairly kind of good wrap up of where we're up to so far. And by then we'll obviously have gotten, hopefully, a lot of the postponement agreements in place. So from there, to be honest, I'm not really sure. I don't know if Brian, if you've got a...
Through your worship, I think after the wrap up of all the agreements put in place, there may be those that are on a payment plan that no longer can afford the payment plan. They may choose to postpone an amount, but I'm thinking that would be few, probably far between. So there wouldn't be, I don't think it would be necessary to have a cycle of reporting. It might be if there's an influx or a considerable change to what's happening. I mean, would we report on one if it happened in a 3-month period, but all of a sudden we got 15, that might be an indicator that people are struggling.
Councillor, before I do.
Okay, thanks very much, Your Worship. No, I certainly wouldn't expect there to be a formal report saying nothing has happened or one has come in. I'm probably looking at slightly wider than that, because this is, it is going to be something that's going to be moving a bit as properties get sold, as the wash up comes as part of the policy. It's a pretty significant liability that council will be potentially postponing. So it may not be in a council report. Will it be ongoing, referred to in our annual report? So I'm just wondering where we might be able to see where that liability sits. And I don't want this to be a policy that's just forgotten about.
Yeah, I think that, it's a good point. I think in hindsight, it'd be good to know those that are no longer on the policy. So there's another side to it. And I think that would be good for everyone to know, to say, actually, out of the 90 that went on the policy by the year end, we're now down to 60, and these are the reasons why they're no longer on the policy. So, yeah, I think we can look at definitely just the right report, probably a financial report. Yes, a lot, 6 months down.
Thank you, Bishop. The other thing is that we have some people that have indicated they'd like to enter a payment plan, and may have already started it, some people. So that might be something important that we could also report to council around how that's tracking, and how our balances are tracking as well, because that's obviously a liability that's reducing. So,
So I think that for me, it's just a matter of whether it is 6 monthly or what that looks like, and maybe 6 monthly might be the first, but we want that and then what it looks like on an annual basis. So, Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks, Your Worship. My last question. So, look, I expect through the independent investigation we will get more information about our system constraints that you talked to. So I won't kind of jump into that side now, but I do know that our revenue team will be administering this policy, which absolutely makes sense. What I wanted to double check is what the management oversight of that might look like, just so we can give confidence to the public that it will be, I suppose that it has the appropriate level of oversight.
Yeah, through your worship. I think your previous question probably sums that up in a way as well. So if it's reported through me to council in terms of how we're using the policy and effectively, hopefully, in the not distant future, the policy can be expired or we don't renew because no one's on it. So I think if there's reporting back through the governors through that financial report on what Jesse mentioned about those reductions in the repayment plans, plus those that are on the policy, and then those numbers that are coming off, it's both management and governance oversight I think we'll have as a result of that.
Thank you.
Are there any questions online? No? Okay.
Nothing for me, thanks, Your Worship.
Councillor Sutherland, then Councillor Johns.
You can hear me okay?
We can, thanks, Karen.
There's just a couple of comments really. Just going back to Councillor Scott's comment about some concerns about capturing more people. I think irrespective, going forward, I think we may find these other issues popping up around rates, direct debits, not necessarily attached to the rates remission policy. I think my view is that we're going to be stuck with them really, whether we like it or not, irrespective of the numbers, and I think we'll just have to handle those as we go along. But I'm comfortable with the policy that's wide enough to for that to be handled properly. That's okay. I think Councillor Scott was on reporting. We do have quite a detailed rates reporting part of our 3 monthly financial reports, and I have been a little critical of that over the last year or two because a lot of work goes in and I don't think it's very relevant, and I've always been a bit concerned about the stuff that worried me wasn't easy to be found. So I think that this policy and how it's going could easily be popped into that, and I do think that part of our financial report needs a look at, to bring it into the now, because that same type of reporting for rates has been around for 20 or 30 years, I think. Just a comment really, and I've made it before, but otherwise I'm happy as we sit right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Sutherland. I think that's quite a good area to put that reporting into, so if you can note that into the minutes, Ellie, that would be great, and we'll have a look at that reporting as a whole, and I'm sure that's some of the review will pick up that as well, because it was one of the questions that was asked in regards to how that was reported and what could have assisted us in understanding. Awesome. Councillor Johns.
I'm happy to recommend or move the recommendation as written.
So that's 1.1.
1 to 1.1, 1.1 to 1.4.
Recommendation has been moved by Councillor Johns, seconded by Councillor Long. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Are you Councillor Franklin?
Yeah, sorry, that was meant to be an aye.
Thank you. Councillor Peter Weber?
Aye.
Councillor Chase?
Aye.
All those in favour? Carried. Thank you, councillors. It brings us to the close of the meeting. I do have one further request if I could. Those that are attending the armistice services, if you could take some photographs if possible of the Centre of Reeds and send those back, or message me or send those back to Nigel Bruin. It's just that we can't do everything today, that would be good. I forgot to ask that. Thank you. Okay, with that we'll close our meeting, but thank you to the team for all the work. It has been a significant amount of work getting this policy right, and there's a lot of people that are waiting for that to give some peace of mind. So thank you very much for all the work on that. Well, I'll close our meeting with our district whakatauaki.
Sorry, Tracy, Mayor Tracy. Excuse me, Councillor Carey put his hand up again.
I think he just forgot to take it down, but I'll just check. Councillor Sutherland.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I just jumped the gun. Just, it was not in respect of Palmerston North Local Water One done well, Mayor Tracy. I was just wondering of what Dannyburg councillors might be heading over there today, if any. Just perhaps you close the meeting first and then chat about that. Perhaps.
Okay, we'll do that. I'll close the meeting and then we can sort out some carpools. Absolutely. Okay. Let the winds of the Ruahine and Tararua give you strength. Let the waters of the Manawatu nourish you. For we are the Pounamu of Te Tāpere Nui o Whānawhonga. Kia ora. We'll just end that recording.